y'all. Welcome back to the Mike Play Podcast. It's a Word to People Champ. Thanks for tuning in. Hope y'all are having a great Tuesday morning. Let me go ahead and get this mic together. Let me see. I'm getting a little feedback. Y'all give me a second to get this mic right. Make sure that our audio is on point. All right. I think that should be better. Yeah. Got that feedback out of there. There you go. Oh well, y'all just gonna have to see my mic in the corner today. I just don't like the look of it. All right. How about now? So like I said, thank y'all for joining. This is the Mike Check Podcast. So apparently this little music situation in StreamYard is it take a sound engineer to get it right. All right. So you gotta adjust it while you're on air and go from there. You can't already have it set before you get started. So all right, so today we're going to pick up where we left off yesterday. We're going to talk about some boxing. We are going to start with NFL. It seems like we just always run out of time. So we're going to start with the NFL and the coaching carousel. So, and I want to talk about, start off with Sean Payton, the former coach of the New Orleans Saints, currently a free agent coach, and what's going to be happening with him in the near future. So you have the NFL coaching carousel, and quite a few jobs came up and quite a few people got fired. And Sean Payton just abruptly retired at the end of the 2021 season, left the Saints kind of high and dry. So they stayed in house. They tried to retain as many coaches as possible, including Dennis Allen, who they promoted to head coach from defensive coordinator. He seemed to be the most experienced as far as head coaching experience goes on the staff. So it was kind of a no brainer. I believe the Saints front office believed that they could just steady the ship. They figured the tools were in place. Sean Payton went 8-9 with a banged up roster, so they figured if we bring back most of those tools and we're going to get some healthy players coming back like Michael Thomas and stuff like that, we should be competitive. And the NFC South didn't look all that daunting at the beginning of the season, and as you can see by the end of the year, it wouldn't have taken much to win this division. 9 games would have done it, 10 for sure. Just some strategic wins, and Sean Payton just kind of left the team in limbo, and then you're looking at Dennis Allen to just kind of steady things. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, and now the Saints are going to use Payton as a bargaining chip to get some assets from whatever team decides to sign him. So that's going to be an interesting dynamic to see play out over the next few weeks because he's already been requested by 4 of the 5 main teams that are looking for coaches. Um, so with him already being requested, he's already completed 1 interview. So we're just going to see how things go from there. But before we get into it, I do want to do a little bit of story time, and then we're going to roll right back into it. So I want to talk about Saints fans in general, or just fans in general. And what's funny to me is that I'm not talking about necessarily the female fan base because I think female fan bases tend to just be more open minded. And a lot of women that aren't deep into football, they look around, they do the research, they get the information, and then they come with a compelling argument of why a team should pursue a certain player, pursue a certain coach, maybe get rid of somebody. These are fans, not like they're from a city, so they just support the team. I'm talking like the true diehard fans that really watch and they understand who's coming in. They watch the draft, stuff like that. Real fans. There's a significant difference between the female fan and the male fans. Um, Female fans to me just seem to put a different level of effort into their opinions, and I can respect that. What I run into with a lot of dudes is they have that Madden mentality, and I know a lot of us that are in our 40s now, or people that are in their mid to late 30s, grew up. And Madden's been around almost your whole life, so you're used to that general manager mode, and I think it has a negative impact on how people view how an organization is run. They don't use a proper approach when they determine the business end of it and why you're not getting certain players, why you have to move on from draft picks, why a guy gets a certain salary. Because one thing I can say for sure about sports in general, oftentimes you're not getting paid for what you're going to do, you're getting paid for what you did. So let's say a rookie comes in on a rookie deal or whatever, and he gets 20 million on his rookie deal. His next deal might be 100 million because he outperformed that $20 million contract. He's earning at a rate. He's performing at a rate higher than what he earns. So they're going to reward him by keeping him in house for one, and then they're going to pay him more money to try and get him to continue to perform at that high level, incentivized. Um, you'll kind of know what an organization believes in the guy by how they lay the contract. If they invest a lot of guaranteed funds, that means that they believe that this guy is going to continue to perform throughout the contract. If you see a lot of incentive based stuff or performance based stuff where you have to hit a certain parameter or certain markers along the course of the season, then you know that they believe the talent is there, but they're either afraid that this guy's not going to stay healthy or he's not going to continue to perform at a particular level that they find suitable. So at the end of the day, those contracts will look different, and it could be two receivers or two running backs or two quarterbacks, like guys from the same position. Their contracts get structured different. Now, another thing that a lot of fans don't take into consideration is that a scheme fit, the way that a player fits into a particular scheme, is going to determine how a team pays them. If you're a team that relies on an explosive receiver, he's going to be more valuable to you than a possession receiver on your team in terms of finance, because you're going to try and do everything you can to keep that player in house. Whereas that guy that just moves the chains, you're probably going to feel like, hey, we designed an offense that allows you to be that productive, just getting first downs and moving the chains. Um, but that explosive dude, there's not enough of them that have the hands that he has and the speed and route running. So we're going to overpay him. Think of somebody like Tyreek Hill. Once he developed his ability to run routes and all that and prove that he was a true commodity, he was able to get paid nice from the Dolphins simply because he has the route running, he has the speed, he's relatively healthy, and his hands have proven to be consistent. When you think of why the Atlanta Falcons held on to Julio Jones for so long, even as he was injured, because they knew 80% of Julio Jones is better than 100% of most of the other receivers in the league. You can line him up outside, you can line him up inside, you can hand the ball off to him on end the rounds. I mean, he was that dynamic of a player, so he was able to collect significant income, but he was going to hold value across the league, whereas other players are going to hold value specific to a team, because they're kind of considered more limited or they're specialists. For example, Michael Thomas, he was more valuable to the Saints at the rate that they paid him than he would be for any other team. So when you start to think about contracts and things like that, that's exactly how values are set. I think a lot of fans, when they look at the way teams are moving, they look at what teams are doing, they quickly just look at, hey, well, this guy's a free agent and we got the salary cap. Let's go get him. That dude might not fit your scheme. And you may not find a way that you could scheme him into getting him open. Like, for example, let's stick with receivers since we've been there already. If you put this guy in a position and say, hey, you're a really good wide receiver, but I understand that you're not going to stretch the field and I have a vertical offense. There's a reason I'm not going to overpay you. Or if I'm more of a possession-based offense, I have a quarterback that's not going to bomb it deep. There's no need for me to overpay speed guys. If you'll notice, in the waning years of Drew Brees' career, the Saints did something very specific to that. Drew Brees had some limitations on how far he can get the ball down the field. And because of that, they undervalued speed guys. So when he retired, they actually didn't have a lot of guys that could stretch the field in house. And a couple of guys they did have, they weren't getting the most out of there. Deontay Hardy, Traquan Smith could get down the field. These are guys who could return, who could be kick returners. So they've got burners. They get stuff done in open field. But you got to give them the ball past 15 yards for them to be explosive where there's less traffic. These aren't guys you could give the ball at somewhere 5 yards around the line of scrimmage, and then they're going to make stuff happen. That's not how it works. It's good for them to stretch the defense, and you just didn't have a QB that could accommodate that. Then you get Jameis Winston in house, and now you're looking for guys who can stretch the field, but you still need possession guys. But now the way that you value those receivers changes. I think that's consistent across the league. So it's something just to notice and pay attention to, something I observe as a fan, and then become somebody who does commentary and analysis. That when I have conversations with fans, in my opinion, it's not fair because I'm bringing analysis and facts, and oftentimes they're bringing emotions or water cooler talk that them and their buddies came up with, but none of these dudes do the homework. Getting the PFF subscription or whatever the case may be is not necessarily enough, in my opinion, to get you there. You've got to be in tune with what's going on. You got to be reading all the articles. You got to be watching all the news reports. You've got to really sink yourself and submerge yourself into what's happening. And I think that that's lacking in fandom. And I think part of it is overexposure to certain things that don't matter as much as others, and people not having the discernment to know what's what. That's really changed the landscape of sports. I don't see it as much in basketball because they have more in-depth analysis that's available for free. So I think more people are in tune, like the PER and things like that, the 2 minute report, things of that nature. All that type of stuff is set a certain way. So, in my opinion, that's kind of uh, that's kind of why you see different fan dynamics in other sports, like basketball. Baseball is, man, that's a whole nother world. As much as I enjoyed baseball as a youngster, the way that they use statistics to determine how they want to structure their roster and build their teams, like the money ball, man, I don't know enough about that to even try and do commentary. I could just sit down. I know when it's a good game and I know when it's not. I know I've been a Braves fan since I was a kid, so I watch the Braves. But as far as football goes, I'm more in depth with the analysis, and that goes into like my coaching background and just my perspective on um, how teams are structured and how strategy is put together to make those teams go. How do you construct a roster? And not something I learned in Madden. This is something I learned when I've sat there, and even in Pop Warner football, where you could do a draft. You basically have to look at what type of offense you're going to run. You watch the kids at the combine, and then you decide who's going to be a good fit for you. And you're also looking at personality and characteristics. Do you have a fun team? Do you have a serious team? If I have a fun team, I need a guy with a more relaxed personality, because either I need him to join the fun or at least not push against it. Um, I can't get the more serious player, even if he's the most talented, because he's going to be standoffish and not fit. Um, that type of stuff. Um, Ultimately, I think that that has played a major part in the way that fans approach football. Now, we're going to go ahead and get into our main topic for the day, real quick. Well, not our main topic, but our main football topic. We're talking about Sean Payton and where he's going to land as a football coach. He's probably the hottest coaching, I can't call him prospect, but the hottest coach available. And there's 5 jobs open. I've got them pulled up here on my phone. We've got the Carolina Panthers, Arizona Cardinals, Indianapolis Colts, Denver Broncos, and the Houston Texans. As of right now, Sean Payton has only interviewed with the Houston Texans. So that interview has been completed, um, but he's going to make his rounds. The only one he's not been requested to interview with is the Indianapolis Colts. And I think a lot of people are looking at whether or not they're going to keep Jeff Saturday as a coach. They've done, let's see, they've interviewed Eric Bieniemy, Aaron Glenn, Ben Johnson, um, Raheem Morris. Jeff Saturday is already in. So those are the guys that have already been interviewed by the Colts. They didn't talk to Sean Payton, so I'm kind of feeling like they're leaning to Saturday, or they don't want to give him the type of control that he's going to be asking for. In New Orleans, while he wasn't the general manager, he did have the ability to affect roster management because he had a really good relationship with Mickey Loomis. So if I had to prospect on which of these teams is the best fit for him, I think I like the Arizona Cardinals because I think that their general manager, even though he probably is a little bit meddlesome, I think with a coach like Sean Payton, who's won a Super Bowl, he could find a way to back off and collectively um, work with him to build a roster that's championship level. I don't know if Sean Payton wants to coach Kyler Murray. He's done some things with Taysom Hill that I thought were exciting and interesting, but I don't know if that works with Kyler Murray because this is more of a passing who can run as well. Um, I just don't see him wanting that as his full time quarterback. So I don't know that he would pick Arizona. And to him, it doesn't matter what assets Arizona will have to give up to get Sean Payton because, you know, he's getting the job. He don't care about that. All right, let's see who else we had on there. Denver Broncos. Oh, I'll tell you why I don't like the Panthers fit. Um, the Panthers, for some reason, they don't seem like a great free agent draw. Like guys don't want to come there, but sometimes that's what you build it. Guys didn't really come to New Orleans at first, and now they're willing to come and play in New Orleans, even in Sean Payton and Drew Brees' absence. We got the Honey Badger, we got Jarvis Landry. Obviously, those are Louisiana and LSU guys, but still, guys are willing to come to New Orleans and play. The other one was Houston, and let me see. Yeah, he actually completed his interview there. They also interviewed D'Amico Ryans. He's a former player, and Shane Steichen. Um, Basically, I view Sean Payton in Houston as a good fit because they're going to give him everything. He's going to get that power like Bill Belichick has. And hey, good morning, Nate. How are you, man? I'm just talking a little bit of American football, a head coaching vacancy or some vacancies in a coach. We are going to get to some boxing though. I've got my note cards ready with some boxing topics about the upcoming fights. So if you're not really interested in football, I'm wrapping it up here another 2 minutes, and then we're gonna get into boxing. But if you're interested, maybe it's some news that you might care about a little bit. But yeah, so for Sean Payton in Houston, they're looking at giving him the Bill Belichick package, which means he could be a GM slash head coach. So he has even more influence over the roster. The problem is he's going to need a good money guy who's going to help him juggle and balance the books in a way that allows him to build a roster that can last over time. And when it's time to reset, they're not in financial cap hell. Um, if they're in cap and if they're in a troublesome cap situation, it makes it hard for you to remain competitive for a long time. Something that occasionally Mickey Loomis has done to him. But with Sean Payton, how you know your offense is going to run, your team is going to hum in that regard, and then you'll just have to have enough cash to pay for a defense. Because one thing you know about Sean Payton, his offense is he can have limited tools and still make it productive. He can still put up 30 points a game with not the best pieces, even with injuries. It's just defensively, usually he's overinvested in the quarterback side, so he can't get his defense right, which is going to be more based on talent and not scheme. Um, what was the other one? I had Denver on here. Oh yeah, Denver Broncos. So you got Russell Wilson. We don't know how that's going to play out, but I think Denver's an okay market. The problem is you have to get people willing to get on board with you facing Andy Reid twice a year, and that you're going to be successful against Andy Reid at least once a year, so you can at least split and maybe overcome the Chiefs. And because they win about 13, 12 to 14 games a year, you have to find a way to win 12 to 14 games a year, and they're going to want you to do it right away. He didn't have those type of problems in the NFC South because Atlanta just wasn't putting up those type of numbers. You could get to 11 or 12 and win that division. You didn't need 13, 14. And you didn't need to sweep Atlanta to win the division. Um, no such luck when you've got the Chargers, you've got the Broncos, the Chiefs. Who else is in the West? And the Raiders. These are all competitive teams and teams that give each other hell. So I think it's a little bit different than what he might be used to, and it could pose a problem for him choosing to go to Denver. So at the moment, I'm thinking he'll pick Houston because he has so much opportunity to do so many different things, and then the Cardinals will be the other because I believe that the general manager would give him some flexibility. So that's kind of my take on that. We're gonna go ahead and transition into um, boxing. But before we do, I have a friend who is running a tax business. I'm going to run their quick little ad on the screen. So bear with me. I'm going to run that real quick and then I'll be right back. All right. So we are back. That was Premier Tax Service in San Angelo, Texas. They do virtual. So if you're in the U.S. and you need your taxes done, feel free to check them out. If you are watching the show, you're U.S. based and you have a digital product or something like that, I'm happy to assist you in promoting. It's free right now. So, this is not a paid advertisement. I'm just looking out for other people that tend to support me. All right. So, boxing it is. So, I want to talk about some of these upcoming things. And the first thing I want to talk about, we're going to start with the fight between Tim Tszyu and Tony Harrison has been agreed upon and scheduled in lieu of Tim Tszyu versus Jamel Charlo for the WBO belt, basically an undisputed fight. So my thing about it is, what is Jamel Charlo going to do now that basically Tim Tszyu has moved on? Do we get another fight from Jamel Charlo in the interim, or does he just sit around and wait for these guys to fight? Um, Wait for these guys to fight, take some time off, go to camp, and then have a fight with him, which they can agree on by the time they even hit the ring that, hey, the winner's going to get Charlo in X amount of time. For those who are listening or watching, if you remember yesterday, Carmen Serene was on, and she was saying that it's going to be about 8 months for Mel. So if you look at 8 months of recovery, he got injured in December, so that means that he's not going to be ready until late July and probably can't get back into the ring until August. Um, I've had broken bones, broken fingers, broken wrist, broken elbow. There's a pin in my elbow now. You could get back to certain things, I say, in 8 weeks, and then you could probably start to perform within another 8 weeks after that. I had a football injury and I was back on the field within a few months after I broke my wrist. I broke it in November. I was back on the field in May playing football. Now, I subsequently broke the elbow when I returned to action, but that had nothing to do with the wrist issue. And I've never had any wrist problems since then. Now, because he uses his hand exclusively for boxing, maybe his timetable is a little bit different, but my timetable was under 5 months. Um, so if we could project that he needs to either wait for them, if it's 5 months and he could do a camp, I would say that puts him in the June timeframe to fight whoever wins this fight. Um, but if he's looking at maybe July and he's probably going to fight in August, that means he's going to maybe get another opponent in between. In my opinion, like a touch up. I was thinking he's got a couple of smaller guys who've gone up to 154, including Danny Garcia, which I think will be a competitive fight. I don't know if Danny's big enough, or Jose Benavidez, who's a significantly bigger person, better reach, kind of tailor made to be beat on. So if you want to test out your hands without having to have a long night, somebody who ain't gonna throw a lot back at you, um, just keep the ring rust off. I think Jose Benavidez Jr. is a good fight. Nate, what do you think? If Jamel Charlo wants to get back in the ring sooner than later, let's say he's got a truncated time frame, he's going to be ready by the end of May. Would you like to see him fight Jose Benavidez Jr.? Because in my opinion, like I said, from a stylistic standpoint, Mel is going to move around. He's going to use angles. I think that some of those mental lapses that he has, if there's an opponent you can risk it against, it's Jose Benavidez Jr., especially him coming up from 47 to 54. I think one of these guys who's been pulled up into a higher weight class might be a good soft return to the ring. Well, I don't like to say that. There's no soft return to the ring. Uh, an opponent who's going to offer a different type of resistance than if he gets back in there with Harrison, who's coming for blood. Tim Tszyu, he's a hungry lion. He's coming for blood. Benavidez has been in the game. I don't think he'll be as hungry facing Mel. He'll just be looking at the payday. Danny Garcia, I don't believe provides the same type of challenge, but he'll be active. He'll give him angles. He's going to land some shots. I just think that Mel's going to have the chin to stand up. So I think either one of those would be a good fight if he's going to be ready, let's say around May. And coming off the Harrison and Zoo fight, those guys are going to need time to take off, go back to camp and recover, and get ready to fight Jamel. And I don't think they would want to fight him too soon after they just fought the other. So what do you guys? You think that'd be a good fight? Yeah, I mean, I would lean more to Benavidez just because I think it's a better physical matchup. Honestly, even though I said Danny, I personally don't want to see Danny get beat up, and I think that Mel would just have too many tools for him. Um, Danny's a good dude. I don't even know why he's still boxing because I don't see him reaching championship level at 154. Maybe he could be more competitive at 147 if he is just hanging out at 54 until Errol and Terrence move on, and then he'll come down and go compete for the vacant belts. But he's staying at 54 because people will be okay with him fighting at the lower rungs of the division until he could just drop back down. Because if you looked at him at 54, he looked like he was in shape, man. He looked like a small 54. Like I don't even remember the weigh in, but I think it was like 152. So I don't even know that he can blow up enough to really truly be a heavy hitter at that weight class. And Danny ain't that tall, if I'm not mistaken. He's like 5'7", 5'8". That's not ideal at 54. I think Castano is a short 54, and he's like 5'9". So Harrison's like 5'10", Mel 6 foot. I just think that Danny physically, I think it's ideal for him to be back at 47. But if he's gonna be at 54 looking for a big money fight, I feel like Jamel would be a good opportunity. I just don't know if he want that chin check like that. And I don't know if he has enough power in the other tools at this age, at his stage in his career, to put up a really strong fight. Um, but Jose, he's shown that he got a beard on him. Like he taking some punishment. Like his last few fights, the way he's just stalking forward with the high guard and swayed back. Um, I just think he'll be target practice, but I just think he'll be more durable against Mel. I mean, he'll eventually get knocked out, but I think you probably see Danny get up out of there in 5. Maybe Jose can make it to 8, maybe 10. But I still think Mel stops them both. I just think it would be a good return to the ring. Hold on, guys. I'm working on everything here. I'm the engineer. I'm the host. I'm the sound guy. Everything. So I gotta make sure it's all working. Um, so yeah, with that fight being delayed because of Mel's injury, I think that would be an alternative for him. Now, if we talk about Tim Zoo versus Tony Harrison, since that's the fight that we're actually going to get for sure, I like it. I feel like some people have been saying, if you look on Twitter and different YouTube videos, which I frequent the entire boxing community, um, some people are saying that they don't know that Harrison has got enough left and he didn't look great in his last few fights. But I'm not worried about that. Honestly, I'm more concerned with Tim Zoo not having the tool bag to handle what Harrison can bring. I think Tony's gonna be fired up because he's gonna get this will line him up for another opportunity. Um, wouldn't okay, got you. I think Tim Zoo is lining up. I mean, Harrison is looking at the opportunity lined up for him to get a shot at the belt again. And now you get to go in there and potentially go for undisputed. And somebody made a good point. He's got Alicia Baumgardner going for undisputed. If he can win against Tim Zoo and fight Mel and somehow beat Mel, then he could become an undisputed coach and an undisputed fighter all in the same year. That's never been done. So I think that would be amazing. Good point, Nate. A big challenge wouldn't really be good, especially coming from a hand injury, right? Because it's critical. I think if you're coming off like a foot or like an ankle or hip injury, maybe you could chance it because you could just change the way that you're moving. But you exclusively use your hands in the fight. You even use it for different things like parrying and blocking and framing and pinning. And if you have any damage, I don't know if you've ever broken anything, but having a hand issue is no fun. Um, there's some recovery that mentally you have to check back into when I throw this punch, am I going to start throwing my punches differently because I'm afraid I'm break it again? You're constantly replaying. When I broke it last time, what was I doing? That type of stuff. So, in my opinion, it definitely got to be something that I feel like is more manageable for him. All right, let me see. Let me see. But yeah, so Tim Zoo and Harrison, I like the way it looks on paper. I think it's a good contrast. I think Zoo is the more basic, fundamental power puncher, and I think Tony is the more high level boxer. But he can still crack. I mean, he's got what 20 KOs, so I think that that's pretty good. Now the KOs came before he moved up into the higher ranks of 154, but if it's there, it's there. That means that he knows how to set up shots because he's never been a big puncher. Um, so let's talk about Josh Taylor and Jack Catterall. So not necessarily the fight itself as far as the in-ring strategy, but what about um, moving on from this fight and what does each person do? I mean, Josh Taylor's what down to one belt, so is it time to just call it quits at 140 and go try his luck at 147? Matter of fact, let's look up how old Josh Taylor is. I think that that's important in determining what he should do because if he's past like 32, I don't even know if I move up divisions if I plan on continuing to compete for a significant time. All right, so he was WBA champ from 2019 to 2022. He was WBC champ from 2021 to 2022, and he had the IBF. So all he has left is the WBO. So holding the WBO, he's been a super champion. He could come right up and challenge Terrence Crawford for that belt. So if he's injured, why not just go ahead and move up to 47 and try to fight Terrence Crawford? And do we think that he has a good opportunity against Terrence Crawford? Because I say just let it go, man. Let Catterall fight for a vacant belt. Let the division get back moving, which you're starting to move it anyway. Because now you got Regis, he doing his thing, two-time champion. You've got Gary Antoine Russell going to be pursuing the belt. If I'm not mistaken, I think he's on the WBA WBC path. That's typically how those PBC guys go, and then the top ranked guys usually go WBO, and then the overseas guys usually go the IBF route. So. Um, that's kind of how those belts will probably be distributed. And then from there, you're going to see them eventually have to fight to get unified and undisputed, with Regis being a bit of a free agent. So he'll get to move around and do what he wants to do. But I think it might be time to just move on and let it go and just scrap the whole idea because it doesn't look like it's going to happen. This is the second delay. And now the steam for the fight is gone. Even though people still are going to always question like who actually won the first time, even though they gave it to Taylor. Um, I just don't think the interest is there anymore for them to even bother. Nobody cares that it was a controversial decision. All right, let's see what else I got here. All right, so I was looking over the schedule, and I did a video on this that I'll publish a little bit later today. But I was looking over the schedule, and I have Spence and Thurman in May. I have Fulton and Inouye in May, and I have Canelo Alvarez and John Ryder, and then we have Devin and Loma. That's four fights, and three out of the four are pay per view. So, as a boxing fan, do you just buy one, or are you going to purchase two or more? I could tell you for sure, I'm not buying more than two fights. Um, the uh, the Devin and Loma fight, I definitely want to see it. I feel like it's going to be a good fight, and I think because I already have the ESPN Plus subscription, I think I'll be able to get the fight for like $60. So I'll probably get that one. Um, might just do a party that way I get reimbursed, or just do a wager so I can pay for it that way. Big fights, yeah. Yeah, they're all important because the result of Spence Thurman is truly going to shape what 147 looks like for the second half of the year. Because a win by Spence means we're most likely going to get Crawford and Spence before the end of the year, and then he's going to have to move up. A loss by Spence means that he's going to 154, and we're probably never going to see him and Terrence Crawford fight. There's not enough money in it at any other division with anything else on the line besides what's there right now. So he's got to be Keith Thurman to get the max value of a Terrence Crawford fight. So that's important. Um, the Alvarez Ryder fight, it's a big fight because it's Canelo, but I don't think it's a big fight because of the matchup. That could be Canelo versus, I don't know who's at 68. Um, Janabek. Canelo versus Munguia. Canelo versus anybody will be at the same level as this fight, in my opinion. So I think the only thing that takes it higher to make it an important fight would be Benavidez rematch with Plant, Charlo. I don't even think the Andre fight would be in that upper echelon of interest. Let me see. Like I said, I got my little list here. So I'm just going down, making sure we have some structure. We're not just meandering. Um, but yeah, okay. So like I said, Fulton Inouye is going to be on regular ESPN. Oh, I like that question. Cool. Let me finish out this May thing, and then we can talk about Anthony Joshua a little bit too, because I'm very curious what he should be doing too. All right, so let's see. So Alvarez Ryder, lukewarm interest. Um, Inoue and Fulton, yes. Definitely gonna get up early and watch that one. And it's a Tuesday when my schedule's more open. And what was the other one? Oh, Devin and Loma. Um, after Loma's last fight, I, I just think Devin's gonna beat him, man, and it's not going to look good. I think he might embarrass Loma because I just saw the way that he moved, and Devin's not gonna run out of gas like Ortiz did. If Devin would throw combinations and be a little bit aggressive like he was in the second fight against Cambosis, I really think Devin can win, and it's going to be too much for Loma because I think that he slowed down too much. Just the rigors of that long amateur career and then coming into the pros and these long stretches between fights aren't going to be good for him. All right, let's see. So let's get to what you were saying here, and then we'll get into the potential April stuff. All right, so what do you think the next move for Anthony Joshua should be? So, have we confirmed that he's going to be trained by Derek James? That's the first thing. We do know he's going to be training in the U.S. and then he's going overseas for his next fight. So let's look at potential opponents who've been listed. Um, he's got to get back in the win column. So um, because he's such a money draw, the opponent isn't that important, right? Because as long as he fights overseas, who he fights won't matter that much as long as he can get a win. Um, I believe Dillian White has been kicked around, and I think that he could do really well in that fight. I think it would be a good way for him to get back acclimated, something that he should be the favorite in, something people will have interest in. It's a big enough name to be marketable, but not a level of opponent that's going to make it a dangerous fight, in my opinion. I just don't see Dillian White having anything he could take advantage of against Anthony Joshua at this point. And I think if he's with somebody like Derek James, um, I think it's a good testing fight to figure out if the mesh is there. Does that make sense? Let me see. I want to see. uh, Let's get to. All right. So I am on Boxing Social. So let's see who they recommend as potential opponents. Okay, so they didn't even make a list. I want to go somewhere with somebody with a list because I want to see what the word is. Yeah, because they're talking about Deontay Wilder, and I'm just Just not interested in that. Let me see. I like to go off things that are in black and white. So here's who I don't want him to fight. How about that? I don't want him to get in there with Tyson Fury. I don't want him to fight Deontay Wilder next. We obviously don't need him to fight Alexander Usyk again. So, oh, you know who might be a good competitive fight? What was the guy who he lost to Dillian White? What was that fighter's name? Jermaine something. Let me see. That would be a good fight. Yeah, the American. What was what was the kid's name? Jermaine. It's not Williams. I'm having a hard time. I'm drawing a blank. I'm gonna pull it up on BoxRec though, just to be sure. Jermaine Franklin. I think that would be a good competitive fight with AJ. Um, I think that dude got skills. Now the problem for AJ is that you're going to be facing a real boxer, uh, and I think that like a true boxing type could be his kryptonite, but it's still a winnable fight because I think his power will carry in that particular fight. And if he's working with Derrick James, I think the way that he'll have him sitting down on his punches, the way that he'll have him um, using educated aggression, that will work. Yeah, I mean he definitely has some hands. I thought he did enough to make it a draw. Um, I thought that that fight was super competitive with Dillian White. So I think putting him in there with AJ will be a good test of any training that he's done up to this point. Because even though Derrick James said when he came down to Texas he was just passing through, I'm wondering if they worked on some things. UT in the house. Gotta get that morning coffee popping. Um, I think that Franklin has the combination of things that will trouble Joshua enough, but if he's smart and listens to his corner, he can overcome them. Because I don't think that Franklin is too overwhelming. It's still a winnable fight. Plus, he's coming off a loss. So to me, that kind of leaves the door open where people are going to feel like, oh, he's hungry. He's stepping up to a nice challenge. He's pushing himself. So it raises his profile. But then it also does look good for AJ to say, hey, I'm going to try and beat you in a better fashion than Dillian did. And I think that would be a good look for him. Now, as far as trainers go, I'm hoping it's Derrick James. Like I really do. That would be that would be a good pairing in my opinion, because I feel like the technical approach that Derrick James applies is really going to be good for Dillian White. I mean for Anthony Joshua, because AJ seems cerebral to me. Like if you can help him understand what he's doing and why he's doing it, it seems like he's more relaxed and he can execute well. There's a series on the zone, and I think it's building AJ or something like that, building Anthony Joshua. And when you look at the way he reflects on things, you can see it's on a cerebral level. You know, he's using his psychology to understand how he got there. He's telling you exactly where his mind went. When you look at other boxers, they don't tell you what they were thinking from a psychological standpoint. They tell you what they were thinking from a physical standpoint. Like if you sit there and they're like watching the fight, like if you look at the post fight thing and they got the screen up and they're like, hey, tell us what was going on right here, XYZ. And they give you X's and O's. Like, oh, he was dropping the right hand. So, you know, usually when we drill that, we come back with such and such. This is how we counter that, whatever. But they don't talk about like, so in my mind, I knew this was happening earlier in the fight. So when we got to this point, I knew this. They don't talk about the psychology. AJ was using that type of descriptive terminology in order to explain his mindset. And I think to me, that makes him a really good fit for Derrick James. Somebody else who's starting to do it, and it's kind of sneakily added in, Javante Davis does it. He was talking about his mindset when he was facing Hector Luis Garcia and how he was using the psychology of what was happening in the ring um, to change his strategy throughout the rounds. Hey, good question. What about Joe Joyce if Joshua wins his next fight? Um, yeah, it's a slugfest because Joe Joyce is kind of slow with the hands, but I think it's a good match, especially coming off a win because now AJ has regained that confidence. But I think again, this is where the strategy thing comes in. If he's with the coach that's going to help him expand on his strategy and be use his cerebral approach in the ring, set up shots, set traps, create combinations that make sense. Excuse me. Um, Going in with that type of confidence and experience with his trainer against Joe Joyce, I think would be more helpful. Yeah. So no, I think that's a good point. Um, I don't know that he becomes a champion again because he can't beat Usyk, or he hasn't shown that he can, and they'll probably never fight again. Um, and I don't think he can beat Tyson Fury. So, I mean, is this a cash out? You fight Joe Joyce, you make some money, and then that lines you up to eventually fight Deontay Wilder, who, from what I understand, is pursuing championships still, even though he's older. I just don't know how these two are going to shake out the rest of their career. Like, are you chasing legacy or money? Because then that kind of determines the path as well. Because for me, I like Deontay Wilder. I understand his limitations. I don't see him ever becoming a champion again unless Usyk somehow beats Fury, because then I think Deontay can actually KO Usyk. I know that's a weird triangle. I don't see Deontay in any way beating Fury unless he's roided up and KOs him. Other than that, I don't really see his path to championship. So setting up a fight where he gets 2 or 3 wins under his belt, AJ gets 2 or 3 wins under his belt, and then they meet. Because if you do a AJ path, you could say Jermaine Franklin, Dillian White, and then Joe Joyce, and then boom, he's ready to fight Deontay Wilder. Deontay Wilder can fight Andy Ruiz. He could get another American heavyweight, and then maybe somebody else from the UK to start to get that buzz over there where AJ could be in the building, and then they can kind of do whatever, call each other out, and then they get a fight like that. So it's not a boxing thing. Um, I just think that his power might be too much for Usyk. I like Usyk's toughness, but I think that if he puts him down, he can put him out. I don't know that Fury will have the same fire for Usyk that he had for Wilder in those in second and third fight. So I think that he might leave some meat on the bone and give Usyk a chance to outbox him. So I think that he could slip past Fury and then set up a fight with Deontay Wilder. And I feel like that KO power, like Wilder's going to be coming for blood. And I just think that that might overwhelm Usyk because he's never seen power like that. That's the only reason. If Fury comes in truly ready for Usyk, then I don't see him losing, because I think the combination of size and his high level boxing skill and ring IQ would just be too much. But if he doesn't take him seriously because he is so much bigger, I think he leaves an opportunity for Usyk to win. Hopefully that explains my perspective. But in a straight up boxing match, like if Wilder tried to do that boxing he did against Hellenius, he can't beat Usyk. He got to come in there and try to kill that man. But for the most part, I don't see Wilder or AJ in the room with Fury or Usyk as long as either one of them has a belt. Now, if one of them becomes undisputed, then whoever loses might actually get in the ring with those two guys and try to get that bag up. But neither one of them need to touch those champions right now. I feel like that's an automatic loss, and it just devalues them even further, um, because they both have the two losses now. If they're trying to make some money, they're going to need to do it um, with their records as is. No more losses, and they need to knock out a couple people. Wilder's already on the path of that. AJ need to go knock somebody out. I think there's an opportunity for him to knock out Franklin, and maybe even catch Dillian White slipping. Um, but I just think 3 fights each, and then going up to fight each other, and then get out the game. Don't keep doing this. Definitely Wilder. I think there's some irreversible damage that occurred in those 3 Fury fights that I worry for him to continue boxing over the next couple of years. I think three, maybe four fights, make them all marquee fights that make money, and then retire, go be a father, go be a husband, and just get out the game. Maybe go be a promoter, something like that. I could really see him helping other fighters as a promoter. I think AJ would be great doing like commentary and not ringside, but maybe like a boxing show where he sits down and talks to other fighters, and he kind of is able to ask the questions that pull out the psychology that other analysts just don't do. But as far as fighting, three, four fights they need to call it a day. Let me see what else we got. What else we got? I want to talk about Plant Benavidez another day. I'm also going to talk about the women's cards coming up because you got two good ones on there. Um, and I think this year Clarissa Shields is taking off to do her MMA because I did see she was tweeting about being an MMA training. So I think this is her MMA year, and then next year she's going to get back to boxing. So that means that we've got to look elsewhere in the women's division for some marquee stuff. And we got at the top end, we got some people, Franchon DeJean Cruz, um, you got Jessica McCaskill, Alicia Baumgartner, Michaela Mayer, Katie Taylor. I was actually looking at some betting lines, and they might be talking about setting up Katie Taylor and Serrano too. That might be a good fight to watch. I'm thinking that was going to have to go overseas this time, but I know they made a bag fighting MSG, so they could run it back just in a different location, like put it in Texas or something like that. That might be cool, but I just don't know how that'll play out. But I've honestly ran through all of my topics for today, so I don't have anything left to give unless there's some questions. I'm open to talk about some other topics. If not, we can go ahead and call it a day. I'll give it a couple of minutes. Let me make sure there's nothing that I missed that I had planned to talk about today. Yeah, I think I hit them all. Okay, so I'll close on one last thing. I'm going to shift to football just to close it out. It's something that I have been meaning to do, and I feel like I don't need to do a video on it. So NFL Hall of Famer Ed Reed was going to be the coach at Bethune Cookman College in or University in Florida, and we did a congratulations video about a month ago. Unfortunately, he's not going to be getting that job because he made a couple social media posts calling out some issues over there on the campus. There have been the campus has been ravaged by a storm, and then there's some stuff like his office wasn't ready. There's a lot of different things that were laid out that weren't done, and because he exposed those things, trash all over campus, he decided to put it on social media, rally the troops, try to get some help, and they did not. Um, they did not like that at the university, so they decided not to ratify his contract. So the students did a march on Sunday to do that. Fury find a harder opponent. There ain't none. You can't duplicate what he did, what he is. That combination of boxing skill and IQ and being you can't duplicate what 6'9", almost 300 pounds. So nothing you can do about that. uh, you just need somebody like you said. You gotta spark me out. That's the only way you're gonna beat me. If you don't knock me out, I'm not losing. And he's proven to be true on that. He's putting down guys that he's found a way to KO his opponents. So he's not even giving you a chance to make it to the end of the fight. When you got that going on, until you duplicate that, it's not gonna happen. Jared Anderson is the best thing coming up that can make it work. The other person who might could do it, but he can't KO Fury, Frank Sanchez. I think as a heavyweight, he's got all the tools, and I think he might even have a better ring IQ and footwork to set up his shots. That could give Fury a lot of trouble because he's not seen that. I just don't know if his chin is going to hold up when he's taking those power shots from Fury and getting laid on. He's beat everyone that is worthy. Facts. I mean, he's beat the top of his division, and then he's got to beat Usyk and become undisputed. And then where does he go from here? Fury's actually young. Was he 32, 33? He went undisputed. He really got nothing else to prove. Maybe there's more money on the table for him, but he could probably cross over into some of that exhibition stuff if he just want to make money and keep his record intact as peer. and not even worry about boxing. He ain't got to worry about all the rules and the commissions and all that stuff. He ain't got to worry about the travel restrictions. And I think over there in the Middle East, they'll still pay him to fight on exhibition cards because they could bill him as undisputed boxing champion even if he's retired. So he's done everything he needs to besides beat Usyk and become undisputed, which I think is kind of a no brainer. I think it's going to happen for sure. So that would be my idea of what happens there. But yeah, like I said, I didn't have anything else. I ran through all my notes, so I'm going to go ahead and close it. I do appreciate you tuning in. Thank all those who've watched live or will be watching on the replay. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Tell a friend and tell a friend. Thank you for joining me in the booth on the Mic Check podcast. I'm T Word, the People's Champ. I am out. Peace.